Sign the petition, free Julian Assange. Free petition to Assange to get him out of jail. Look at it tonight.
Welcome to the 196th week of Julian Assange Sydney Town Hall gatherings. The unity of people would make a huge difference to our world if only we can achieve it. It's not complicated. We need only to be united on one thing. That one thing is freeing Julian Assange. This would allow him and others to go all out on making governments and corporations transparent. Julian Assange is currently in prison because he devised the way to bring transparency to otherwise non-transparent governments and corporations. The fact that he has been politically persecuted shows us that those holding power greatly fear the method of transparency that Julian Assange employed to great effect. What is holding us back? Why don't we have the necessary unity? There are various reasons. The principal one is that our government and the mainstream press are working against it. Together, they form an effective system of psychological control. They push the narrative that we are truthfully informed and that we are able to choose the politicians who will best serve us. This system of control maintains itself. Mainstream narratives never mention that the system could be improved or that anything worthwhile might be achieved through the unity of the people. People apparently feel content with the mainstream fiction of our so-called democracy. But there's more to the story. Some people do speak up against the fiction, but ideas that become a threat to the mainstream narratives are pounced upon and discredited by mainstream politicians and media. Anyone who dares to contradict mainstream narratives is ruthlessly smeared. Most people are not prepared to run the risk of being publicly humiliated. So they limit their discussions to topics in the range deemed acceptable by the mainstream politicians and the press. The lack of unity of the people appears to be related to a combination of ignorance and apathy. Ignorance is not knowing the truth, whereas apathy is knowing the truth but saying and doing nothing about it. We also have social media companies discouraging the speaking of truth by implementing penalties designed to elicit self-censorship. Politicians and the mainstream press are integral to an elaborate system of psychological control. The mainstream press is not free and doesn't care about press freedom. If the mainstream press was in favour of a free press, they would have strongly supported Julian Assange over the past 13 years. But they haven't. It's up to us. We must support Julian Assange and show our unity for his freedom. Free, free, Julian Assange. Free, free, Julian Assange. Free, free, Julian Assange. Thank you. Thank you.
When our Foreign Minister Penny Wong or our Prime Minister Mr Albanese have been asked to put pressure on the United States and demand the release of Julian Assange, they've often said, we can't do anything. They seem to be devoid of any ideas. They say it's held up in the courts, or that it's a matter for other countries and they're not involved. I don't believe that's true because Julian Assange is an Australian citizen. But I've got an idea for Penny Wong and Mr Albanese, and it comes from Ronald Reagan's wife, Nancy Reagan. She had a good idea. She said, what we should do is just say no. So Mr Albanese, that's what you should do. You should just say no to the United States and their embedded spies. Just say no to AUKUS. Just say no to the submarines, which will probably end up costing us $1 billion. Sorry, maybe $1 trillion, sorry. Not $1 billion, $1 trillion. It's hard to get your mind around such a figure. And they may not be here in my lifetime. So just say no, Mr Albanese. Just say no to Pine Gap and say no to US bases on Australian soil. Say no to giving away our resources. So thank you, Nancy Reagan, for such a brilliant idea. Just say no. Put pressure on the United States. You've done it before. We've had James Ricketson released because of pressure from the government. There's no need to be timid. You can say no. Bring Julian Assange home. Thank you.
Julian Assange is being accused of espionage. Espionage is when You steal state secrets and you give them to the enemy. Who did Julian give the state secrets to? He gave them to the people.
Yes.
Who is the enemy?
People. The people.
You are the enemy of the government.
Thank you. Okay, who out there wants to do something for Julian right now? Pull out your phone. Google Julian Assange petition. And look for the big petition. Look for the change.org petition. Philip Adams is the curator. 780,000 signatures so far. Add yours. Yes, please. Free Julian Assange. Sign that petition now, please. Help free Australian award-winning journalist Julian Assange. Thank you. America's keeping Julian on British soil, in Britain's equivalent of Guantanamo Bay. The highest security facility in Great Britain, where Julian's been held for 4.5 years, more than 4.5 years, under solitary confinement lockdown. Absolute travesty of justice. So folks, I plead with you, please sign that petition. Get the phone out. Bring up your favourite search engine. Type in 3 little words. Julian Assange petition. Look for the Philip Adams change.org petition with over 780,000 signatures. And proudly add your signature and become one of the family. Thank you.
USA